Since Singapore gained its independence, it has been known as a garden city. The National Parks Board was created to maintain this image of a green Singapore, but how does the country's conservation efforts compare to others? I interviewed students and faculty to find out. Have you been to any national parks in Singapore recently?
I cannot remember, so probably not.
So which national parks in Singapore have you been to recently?
Recently I've been to the MacRitchie National Park.
You got it.
Sungei Buloh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one. Yeah, that one.
For environmental science?
Yes,
Okay.
AT environmental science.
The youngest park now, which was established in 1992 or so, is the Sungai Buloh Wetland Reserve.
Yeah.
And it's only 15 minutes or so from school, and it's a mangrove park. And of the four of them, it's probably my favorite. It represents what a good part of Singapore shorelines used to look like as well, the mangrove systems that are almost all gone now.
Right. Have you been to any national parks in the U.S.?
I've been to Yosemite.
When you were visiting Yosemite, did you think it was more of like a tourist trap, or did they focus more on conservation?
I feel like the focus more on conservation, and a few things that I know about Yosemite is like they brought in like different species to control other species. Like they brought in some wolves at one point,
Yeah.
control the deer population, then brought the wolves out. They actually try and like make it a stable ecosystem around there.
Yeah. Do you think Singapore could incorporate some of these practices?
I think they can try, but I'm not sure how well it'll turn out due to just how different Yosemite is compared to Singapore.
In that class, what did you learn about conservation efforts in Singapore, or what do you know in general?
Well, we talked a bit about the central catchment or whatever, that part where they reserve that bit of nature, and we were discussing like controversy about putting like an MRT line right through it.
And you maybe have heard about the Cross Island Line,
Yeah.
which would take it directly through the central catchment.
Yeah.
There is a National Parks Act that was passed by the Parliament that said development on national parks land is not supposed to happen.
Yeah.
And so there was, over the last 5 years plus, a lot of controversy about the development of this particular line. And the final record of decision, I don't know if you heard, but
No, I didn't.
in the last month, I guess just before Christmas, it was announced that it would go ahead.
Oh.
A lot of sad, kind of unhappy people regarding that decision in the nature community, but that was the decision that was made.
It's supposed to be done. I think it's either next year or the year after that.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to make travel way faster. But obviously, if you're gonna cut through the central catchment, that's gonna disturb all the wildlife there, like doing all the construction there and stuff.
Yeah.
Mess up the soil.
Do you know anything about how these national parks, or how Singapore in general, sort of deals with conservation?
I think the most that they do is that they protect these national parks a lot, so like
Yeah.
they don't have a lot of development in these areas. So
I think many people might be surprised that NParks and the National Parks Board is relatively young, but and I would need to double check my facts on this, but it would be easy to search up. Somebody told me at one point that it had a budget second only to the defense forces here in Singapore. Although many people were upset by this decision, it should serve as a wake-up call for students like us to get involved in conservation.